Well, all right. Here it is. Here we are. Happy Friday, everybody. We are here, but you are there, and you are watching a show called This Pink Cloud, and it is Season 2, Episode 45. I am DJ Kelly Reverb. I identify as a DJ and alcoholic in recovery. So, anyway, and I've got about 16 months now, I think. Coming up on that,
Kelly.
I'm coming up on that magical 18 month where I think I've got it.
Oh, is that right?
No, I'm already planning.
Oh no!
But sitting across from me today, it's been a while, dude. How long has it been?
Like at least 5 or 6 weeks,
right? Mm-hmm. To be a co-host of the show, you've been scarce, dude.
I'm a busy guy, man.
I know.
I love coming on the show.
Right. Well, we love to have you. But sitting across from me is let me get creative. He is a LPC, LCDC, Zen master, and I always like bearded oracle, Mr. Dusty Burrows.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
AKA the Vanilla Viking.
Right? Oh, yeah, you're adding that. You've got a clothing line coming out,
yeah,
right?
2022, we're going to try to launch the Vanilla Viking wellness apparel, so stay tuned.
Well, now, there's a Vanilla Viking UFC guy, too, right? All right.
I don't know anything about that.
I don't know.
If there is, he stole
your identity.
I got the .com, though, bro. I got the .com.
You own it, so it's yours. There you go.
Everything's for sale, though, you know. As you know very well.
That is true. That is true. So anyway, but excited to have you in. I know you've been busy, and how was your Thanksgiving and all that stuff?
It was pretty low key, you know, just chilling out with the kids and my lady, and got to meet, you know, her dad, and I'd met him before. We hung out, had some turkey and ham, and
cool.
So yeah, it was just a good chill time, man.
All right. Well, cool. Well, we're glad to have you back. But,
good to be back.
But today we are super excited to have, and I will say it properly, Dr. Charles Smith, which he said I could call him Chuck. So,
like that.
But Dr. Charles Smith, all the way from Hollywood, Florida, he actually has this book here called Understanding Addiction, and then I love the play on words, No Science, No Stigma, like KNOW, no science,
or
and
no new
stigma,
taxes,
which I think is a really important thing to point out, like, because there is a huge stigma still out there attached with addiction, and I loved your book. But all the way from Hollywood, Florida, let's welcome Dr. Charles Smith. How are you, Charles?
I'm fine. Thank you, fellas, for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, so first off, when did this book come out?
In June of this year, June 2021.
All right, and then for anybody that wants to get the book, where can they get that?
It's Amazon.
Okay.
And you just type in the name, Understanding Addiction, No Science, No Stigma, and it's on the Amazon site for $14.99 for the paperback and $9.99 for Kindle.
Oh, okay. Great. Good. And there's no audio book yet?
No audio book yet.
You haven't gotten
I'm kind of
you haven't gotten James Earl Jones to do it yet? I guess that would be tough.
Solo. Yeah. My friend, Dr. Hunt, that I wrote the book with, said we actually should do it by author audio, and that way the accents play a part. He's from Kentucky, and I'm from West Virginia, so the accents are pretty thick for both of us.
I like it. Hey, real quick, I want to get to our sponsor before we get to Chuck here. That would be summersky.us, and that is 888-857-8857, and that's www.summersky.us, 888-857-8857. They are a place out in lovely Stephenville, Texas, where I got sober, and they support the show. They supported me through my time of need, and now I am thriving, and you can too. So anyway, sorry about that, Charles. I did the intro without doing the commercial. But yeah, so I guess, you know, the unique perspective of this book is that you're a doctor, but you're also in recovery personally from addiction. correct?
Yes, it is. Yes, that is the unique perspective. And, even at the start of the book, we kind of have a short discussion on whether it's cool or not for healthcare professionals to disclose, whether they have addiction, whether they're in recovery. And we chose to disclose it. We felt like the benefits outweighed the potential risks of that.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with it because it's always supposed to be, this level of professionalism. And I know Dusty was talking about that because Dusty is in recovery as well. But, he's an LPC and LCDC. So I know he has some personal experience with that.
Yeah, in school we're always taught about the disclosure trap and the ethics behind disclosure. And for me, in my personal experience, I've always had a positive experience with careful and ethical disclosure in building rapport with my clients, because I think it's important to let them know that there are these really good comeback stories, or you can start at 30 or 40 or 50 and build a new life based on absolutely nothing, coming from nothing and building into something. And so if you're part of that example, then why not share that? If that's going to encourage hope, encourage change, why not?
Right. I always think a story does that, and you have a great backstory. And if you would like to, for the people that don't have the book yet, just give us a little bit of your backstory and your journey. And then, we'll talk about present day and the book more. But I mean, just a little bit of your backstory would be great.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Well, my actual story starts that, I started drinking as a teenager, like a lot of us do, a binge drinker in college. Then I got in med school and couldn't drink very much. So I found out I probably wouldn't pass class
Right.
if I did.
Right.
As I got into my 30s and had a solo practice and, life on life terms showed up, I had financial stresses, relationship stresses, IRS stresses, being a solo business owner, and the alcohol creeped back in somewhat as a comfort measure. My drinking increased. So by my mid-30s, I was coming into the office sick with alcohol poisoning, hangover / alcohol withdrawal almost every day. That was about the time that they started sampling Vicodin and Lortab hydrocodone. So one particular morning, I was really sick, and I looked up and I said, I wonder if these will help. So I took a few, and honestly, the next 20 years was a blur. I never turned back. The opiates never left my life, and neither did the alcohol. And also mixed in were some stimulants and some Xanax along the way.
Right.
I obtained my pills in various different ways, from ordering them wholesale, which at the DEA's listening, they never charged me with that. So that's hearsay that I ordered them.
Of course.
but then finally in November of 2009, I'm at a small clinic in West Virginia, and two agents showed up and wanted to know what was wrong with me. They had stakeout on me for months because I was getting so many fraudulent prescriptions filled. They thought I was selling. So I assured them that I was not selling them. I'm not so sure they believed me right off the bat, but they hung around for the next few days while I went through detox. They could certainly tell because I was sick for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Classic opiate alcohol.
That must have been a crazy time to sit there. You've got the DEA right behind you looking over your shoulder, and you're in the most miserable state of your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I actually put a phrase in the book that it was the worst day of my life, but it was the best day of my life. Because if they hadn't have came, I would be dead now, I'm sure. I had significant liver function changes from the alcohol and all the Tylenol in the Percocet and the Vicodin. So life was going to be short for me if I hadn't have had that government federal government intervention.
Right. So shout out to the DEA.
Yeah.
Right?
Lifesavers.
They saved your life, right?
They really did.
Their unintentional intervention on you, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you talk about that in the book, the legal intervention, you know?
Yeah. But okay, so they came in and that happened. What so do you actually end up going to a rehab facility, or do you just come clean with them, or what happens? What's the process there?
Well, once they were very kind with me, because they actually suggested we think you need an attorney. I was also a compulsive gambler, so I could not afford an attorney.
I love that. You throw that in the mix, too.
Yeah. And I called the Physician Health Plan, which actually had just started in West Virginia. They used to be called Impaired Physician Program, but now they're called Professional Health Plan. His fellow's name was Dr. Brad Hall, very, very knowledgeable, compassionate fellow. And I went to see him. And of course, he told me, well, you're a very sick man. You need to go to rehab. And I told him, I said, well, Brad, I don't have any money. I have the insurance with the state, but I don't know. I said, I can't go to rehab now. I said, and what about this DEA investigation? He said, which probably, whether this is true or not, I don't know, but I believe it. He said, well, they won't follow you to rehab. And I said, where is this rehab?
Sign me up.
Yeah, right. I've got a cave for you to hang out that is DEA free. So why don't you go over there for a while? So you go right. Go ahead.
So, he gave me that comforting thought. Maybe this would be like medically protected or something. So I went off to Alabama to treatment. And I did at that point. I was able to get a court-appointed attorney, so I wasn't completely forsaking my obligations. And actually, that court-appointed attorney stayed with me for the next 3 years, because it turns out the federal prosecutor who had my case actually I would like to say very knowledgeable of addiction and very compassionate, even though I never met the man, but he never took my case to the grand jury. And I think that was probably predicated by that they knew I wasn't selling them, that I was just sick with the disease of addiction. And my license and my DEA had been surrendered, so I wasn't a danger to the public.
Right.
So he just let me go to treatment.
Okay.
That was 7 years before I was able to recapture a medical license.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Yeah. I mean, so how long did they make you sit in the penalty box for?
Well, actually, I did 5 years of sober living in Alabama. And my profession at that time was resident manager of sober living facility.
Right. Okay.
And I had food stamps.
Okay.
That I actually I had to sell on the black market half of my food stamps to pay for my drug monitoring.
Right.
So that I could eventually present back to a medical board of my rehabilitation and ask for a license back.
Yeah. I mean, so, that's got to be truly humbling to go from doing all this school and then having your own practice, probably a pretty successful practice if you did not have your hand in the till, so to speak. Using and then to going to basically at a sober living, managing a house. And I understand. I understand that because I am. I work at a sober living as well, so I get the whole sober living thing.
And I think that's just such a testament to humility and the necessary need for being humble in recovery. Because people come through all the time, and they're not willing to humble themselves. And I think it's probably made the difference between you surviving and thriving in recovery.
I think so too. A lot of the boys that would come through the halfway house where I was manager, and of course they kindly called me Dr. Chuck.
Right.
But they say, what kind of doctor are you? And my usual response was, I'm the kind that doesn't have a license. And
that's funny. But you are actually an osteopathic medicine, correct?
Yes, sir.
I was reading that, and for those that don't know what osteopathic means, it's like what is it? A all over type of like medicine, not just generalized to one area, but or here I tell you what, why don't I let you spell it out for them?
Well, basically, there are two medical degrees that can be licensed to practice medicine and surgery in the United States. One, of course, are MDs. The other is DOs. And the basic philosophy behind doctor of osteopathic medicine is treat the body as a whole. Mm-hmm. So it is a more holistic approach. Mm-hmm. That's it pretty much in a nutshell. And we also are trained in osteopathic manipulative therapy or spinal manipulative therapy that, depending on your specialty, some practice and some don't.
I gotcha. And then also I was reading on the back, you also went to the Addiction Medicine Fellowship at the University of Florida, which that looks like your buddy Dr. Hunt went there as well, huh?
Yes, and I think we have it in the book. I met Dr. Hunt in Alabama at treatment. We entered like within a few days of each other, and we followed pretty much the same track to get back into medicine and get our licenses back. And he ended up doing the fellowship at the University of Florida and now stayed there as associate professor in psychiatry. I finished the 2-year program and have been in Miami here for 3 years.
Right. And you're actually at work now, so we do appreciate you making the time for us.
I had a question for you, Chuck. I don't know if it was you or Jason that mentioned in the beginning of the book how doctors can go through undergrad and grad school and years of residency and not ever have addiction training. Can you talk a little bit more on that and your concerns about it?
Yes, and I went to med school in 1978 and 1982. There was never a formal lecture on addiction. I do have some memory of when we went through illegal substances and cocaine was talked about. And that was probably the only time I heard dopamine and the pleasure center even mentioned. This is probably 1977. Now, much thanks to the University of Florida, their medical students are required to do a 1-month rotation in addiction medicine. So the 2 years I was at the University of Florida, every month I had a third or fourth year medical student that rotated through with us. So the education on addiction is much improved, but, this is after the millennium. You can go back prior to 2000, that was basically non-existent. Physicians were taught that, addicts basically just were trying to trick them out of prescriptions and they shouldn't be trusted.
And they're just shady. Yeah, they're shady people and there's no disease aspect to it.
Yeah, you mentioned the dopamine system and the reward system. Can you kind of explain that for our audience that don't know what that is?
Yeah, I have it in the book, and whenever I give lectures to family, I talk about the dopamine reward system or the survival system of the brain. And I use that little example of a newborn infant. Newborn infant, it comes out, goes through trauma of childbirth, he's laying in the nursery for a couple of hours, and he's going to start crying. So I always ask the crowd, I said, well, why is this baby crying? And, of course, I get all sorts of answers. He's cold, he's lonely, misses his mother, but the bottom line is he's hungry. And he's not thinking, damn, I want a cheeseburger. He's actually feeling restless, irritable, and discontent.
Right.
I'm sure you guys recognize that phrase.
I've never heard that before.
So he gets some carbohydrates, either mom's milk or formula, and he gets a dopamine bump up to 200. All's good in the world for the next few hours until he drops low again and becomes restless, irritable, and discontent. Now, substances of abuse, alcohol and other drugs, are involved in that system because the dopamine release from those substances is anywhere from 2 to 10 times what it is with natural survival behavior, such as eating when you're hungry, drinking fluids when you're thirsty, or escaping danger, or exercise, or even sex. For example, alcohol is about a 400 release of dopamine. That's double anything you've ever done to save your life. Mm-hmm. So the brain remembers that and actually gives it a term called salience, so that the importance of these substances just comes to the forefront in our brain. We're like, look, this was a life-saving experience, life-extending experience for me. And for about 10% of the population who are vulnerable, it just consumes their life, as you fellows know.
Right.
That's great. Thank you for explaining that. And you brought up salience too, where people ask, well, how come this person is so addicted? They steal their grandmother's purse. They trade their children. They do all these horrific behaviors and make these horrific choices. But in the mind of the person who is addicted, it's a survival, right? They have to get those drugs. They perceive that, or they're going to die. And that's
exactly.
Powerful when people start to understand that it's not an ethical or moral choice anymore. It's a choice perceived as a choice made for survival.
Well, I have a question. Let's play devil's advocate. What would you do if somebody said, well, hey, you made those choices to start using in the beginning?
That's absolutely true.
Go ahead.
I do. I concede that it is a poor choice to begin in the first place.
Right.
When I do prevention talks to junior high and high school students, mm-hmm. one of the things I stress is there are the risk factors of family history, age of early youth, mm-hmm. adverse childhood experiences, dual diagnosis, so that they understand that just casual or social use of substances, how risky it is for people with high risk. Mm-hmm. Also, think about this. Had we not tried alcohol or some other substances as a teen, depending on our peer group, how weird would we have been?
Yeah. Oh, no. It was definitely a part of the lifestyle as a kid. Oh yeah, you're supposed to do this, and it's bad, and it's dangerous, and it's fun, and that's what I always say is nobody ever really signs up to be an alcoholic or an addict. I just signed up to have some fun.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's all I did, and then just kind of got out of control.
Yeah, oddly enough, I was given that risk information as a young guy, at 11 and 12, but I was already in rehab by 13, saying if you pick up these drugs or alcohol, you have a long history of addiction in the family. But also, my 13-year-old undeveloped brain wasn't processing 10 years from then,
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
So yeah, it's just
they should have gotten to you in second.
Right, I was just trying to
grade.
have fun and meet girls,
Right? Yeah. And it's. Hey, I'm not gonna lie here. It is a great social lubricant.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, but yeah, and that's still so amazing to me because you're like a kid, like the nice way to put it is a kid in the candy store being a doctor and having access to your own prescriptions and I just still think oh my God, okay, this is an arson with fertilizer, gasoline, and a book of matches.
Doctor, one of the things that I was really impressed with, I get so excited about, is that you brought up adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, for those of us who aren't familiar with it. I would like to sing from the mountaintops about ACEs because I think it should be in every intake, every school counselor's office, every primary care physician. It's just those simple 10 questions could give you so much information on the potential risk factors for a client. I first heard about it just surfing through TED Talks. It was Dr. Nadine Burke who has an awesome TED Talk on ACEs. And could you share a little bit more about that from your perspective?
Yes, I was just as you fascinated by that also, even to the degree as you go through those 10 questions, they talk about, emotional, physical abuse, and even bullying or told that you were no good I mean, if you played high school football in the era that I played, I can't imagine any more abusive bullying from your average high school football coach.
Right.
So we were exposed to that.
That was definitely when they could get away with some racial slurs and some creative, colorful language, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And as you said, this all happened at a time where the brain and the dopamine reward system is immature and vulnerable to stresses. And we mentioned cortisone releasing factor as the stress hormone we talked about in the book that creates damage to the dopamine reward system, the same as trauma or we see with PTSD patients.
Right.
Yeah, if you guys haven't heard about it, Google ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. You can take the test right online. It's 10 simple questions. It's either yes or no. It's a game changer for anybody.
Okay, I'm in on that.
Doctor, I had one more question for you on that, too, is oftentimes we hear about when we're getting new in recovery, don't make any big decisions that first year or two. Don't get into any relationships, especially. We see that
right.
downfall all the time. Buy a plant, get a dog. If they're still alive in 2 years, then maybe you can start dating. But you talk about repairing the brain's decision maker. Can you share a little bit more on that? Because that's huge.
Yes, whenever I give this talk to families and patients, after I've went through the dopamine reward system and talked about the restless, irritable, discontent, and how the substance becomes so important to us, I use that old OxyClean line. But wait, there's more. But wait, there's more has to do with the prefrontal cortex. And we know from functional MRI scans that not only show anatomy of the brain, but show metabolism, that in active addiction, we have low oxygenated hemoglobin in the prefrontal cortex. Translation, you've got a car that's trying to run on 60 octane gas. It doesn't run efficiently. It misses, it sputters, it just doesn't function right. Now, it takes that system on an average of 2 years to repair. So we're actually being conservative when we say don't make life-changing decisions in that first year. And I think that's a huge role that sponsors and therapists play. Most patients, they need to bounce those things off. I met this really cool chick in detox and we're getting married. Okay? We need to talk to someone about that.
The old rehab romance.
I'm in love.
I love it, dude. Well, hey, look, it's going to happen. And honestly, I've seen it somewhat successfully navigated, and then I've seen it blown up. So, but it's probably one of those risks that you don't necessarily want to take early on. But it's not, I guess it's a good rule of thumb, so to speak.
Well, as they put in the book, it's like getting on that plane. It's a 50% chance that it's going to crash. Do you still want to get on it?
Yeah, right. Well, I love the title of the chapter, the prefrontal cortex. The brakes are out and the steering wheel doesn't work. I loved that. So that was going to be my next question, but you already touched on that. What I want to know, what made you want to write this book from your perspective? What information do you think, or unique perspective do you think that you could bring to the table to where you and Dr. Hunt came up with this concept of writing a book from your personal experience as well as the science behind it?
Well, when I got to rehab, and told them my story, their response to me was, well, you're very sick. You're a very sick patient. Mm. I said, sick? I said, I've been a family practice doctor 26 years. I said, I know sick, okay, diabetes, heart disease, these things. I said, but come on, I drank too much. I'll give you that. And I got hooked on those pills. I said, you know what? I had a cabinet full of them. That could happen to anyone.
I had a prescription. Right?
Yeah. I had a whole pad of
right. Yeah, exactly.
So a huge part of my recovery was finally studying the science and understanding that it was a disease, that's actual physiologic brain chemistry disease. And that helped my recovery so much. And Dr. Hunt also, that we wanted to share that with patients. So we did that in our own practices for quite a long time. We shared it with patients. And usually at these family groups I do, and give them all this information in an hour or an hour and a half, I kept getting the question, is that in a book anywhere? And I go, it's in a lot of books, but some of them not patient and family or layperson friendly. So that's when we set out a couple of years ago to put this one in layperson friendly language so that patients and families could understand the science of the disease, and also by sharing our own story, give them hope that there was long-term recovery.
Yeah. And how long? I mean, I don't want to put you on blast, but how long have you been in recovery now? What is the math? 12 years. Yeah. Okay, that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. Congratulations.
11/23/09. So I just had my 12th AA birthday.
All right.
Awesome, man.
Awesome for you.
One of the great things I think is about this book is not only for the person experiencing addiction, but for the families, because people come in all the time, families, and say, well, my son or my husband, they're just an asshole, and then when you read this book, you actually know that there's a lot of science behind their behaviors. And I think that's huge in order to kind of change the perspective of a family member, that there's a lot of things behind this behavior than just bad choices or poor behavior. And I think that's important to, if they're willing to go that extra mile, and this book is a good tool for that. It's a very short read, and it's a very easy read, but it covers a lot of really good information.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I have one question for you. So, I love the no stigma part of the title of the book. I know we've made a lot of progress over time as far as viewing addiction. What would you like to see change personally, or what do you think society could work on as a whole, as far as destigmatizing, so to speak, addiction?
Well, what we are, my main goal, and I think addiction medicine's goal, is to give us parity with other medical conditions. I mean, no one's ostracized because they have hypertension or diabetes or asthma. So it's very important that patients are able to seek care for this disorder without undergoing that stigma, humiliation, and scrutiny.
Right. Well, and go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say.
I have a line in the.
Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
The book about that it's not only socially acceptable to drink alcohol in our society, but it's socially expected. So I think society in a whole has to give a second look at that peer pressure that's put on both kids and adults to consume alcohol in a sociable fashion. Because for 10% of the population, it's just too risky.
Oh yeah. And I mean, it's out there because, hey, every Christmas, hey, let's all knock back and have a good time and have some drinks, And I mean, it's out there, and if your family is advertising it right in your face, then you're like, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is normal. And then for some of those people, it turns into a little bit of a problem.
And I like how you touched too on, you might be able to manage or be a functioning person with a substance use disorder, but then all of a sudden these risk factors come into your life, your environment changes, and then all of a sudden your choices, your addiction intensifies. I know I was somewhat functional in my 20s, and then my 30s it all just went downhill.
Right.
Now, other people might tell you different based on their perspective, but from my own perspective, I was kind of getting by. But, and I think you kind of touched on that in the book. Somebody can go through managing addiction in 20s and 30s, and all of a sudden they hit their 40s, and it's a shit show.
Yeah.
So
that kind of sounds like my story. Yeah, but I mean, I was gonna say, like, as far as the stigma goes, I think the whole anonymity, the Alcoholics Anonymous thing, I think that the anonymity was a huge part because of how it was looked at in the past, that it was, it could definitely affect you professionally, and it would be like, oh my God, this guy's an alcoholic, and that was a dirty word. Whereas now, I'm glad that and then that's what I try to do with this show, is just, show that it can happen to anybody. And like I said, we don't sign up for it, and it's not intentional. It's just something that happens. And it's, with some people, it happens very quick. With some people like me, it's a more progressive disease.
Exactly. And, I just saw a post recently by Nora Boltkow, who's the medical director for National Institute of Drug Abuse, and it actually, paraphrasing, but it paraphrased that addiction needs to come out of the closet. Because we know historically, diseases like HIV/AIDS, diseases like cancer, they definitely, we don't gain knowledge, good treatment, and advancement as long as they're kept as a secret.
Right. And I like how you pointed out cancer, because obviously if Dusty had cancer, I wouldn't go, man, Dusty's a piece of shit. He has cancer. It's like, if they can view it, as addiction, as a disease like that, and put it into a perspective, I think that's a huge thing, and a huge win actually for addiction recovery.
And I think it's a good testament too, as professionals in recovery like yourself and Dr. Hunt. I work with nurses, I've worked with doctors, I've worked with addiction professionals that enter recovery, and there's a lot of shame and stigma behind that. Or even worse, if they have a relapse after recovery, and sometimes will just change careers altogether. So the fact that not only you two gentlemen overcame your addiction, but you're recovering out loud and sharing your story, I think that's powerful for other doctors, for other attorneys, nurses, addiction professionals, saying you can come back from this.
Thank you. Yeah, and that was a huge reason for us publishing the book also.
Right. I love it. Hey, okay, so do you have a follow-up book coming out? Did I see something about that, or is there one possibly in the works?
Yet.
Not yet. Well, okay, I want to talk to you about a hot button topic now that's out there. You were, I guess, fortunate enough to do oxycodone or Oxycontin, but now there's the whole fentanyl thing out there, which is super dangerous. I'd like to get your take on what's going on with that, and maybe, if there's any moms out there or concerned parents that are listening, because kids are getting fentanyl on the street now, blueberries is what they call them, but the M30s, and they don't know what they're getting. So as a doctor, what would you say to, maybe circumvent that from happening, and also, just your input on that?
Well, you're right. I think the pressed pills, the pills look like roxicodone, or they look like Xanax, but in turn they're fentanyl, hitting the market in the last couple of years is by far the reason we had 100,000 overdose deaths in the United States in the last 12 months.
Right.
Number one, I think it should be looked at as a homeland security issue.
Okay.
Because these deadly chemicals have infiltrated our country. They're not even made in the United States for the most part. So I would like to see some federal intervention from Homeland Security, and it looked at in that version. The other one I like is education to children. See, I give kids a lot of credit. Kids are smart, they listen, and the facts will influence them. Mm-hmm. So, one of the things they know, okay, this Xanax bar didn't come out of your grandma's cabinet. It came out of somebody's pocket. It's probably not Xanax.
Right.
It's probably fentanyl.
Right.
So, a one-time use for someone who has no tolerance has resulted in death many, many, many times.
Sure.
And I've talked to a lot of these mothers. And I hear their grief and frustration. So I think a more national education of our youth is an excellent place to exert effort, as well as block the influx of that fentanyl as much as we can in the United States.
Sure. And I mean, fentanyl really kind of came around because it started to get hard for OxyContin. I mean, the production of or fentanyl was cheaper and more powerful, basically. Would you say yes?
Than heroin. Fentanyl actually replaced heroin.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, we need to legalize testing strips too. And here in the state of Texas, it's still.
I think it might be legal, but I don't know.
Sir.
No, it's not
no,
legal.
It's legal, or it's illegal here in the state of Texas. We have funding for it, but we can't purchase that because it's illegal.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be a big lifesaver.
Yeah.
So that's still amazing to me that we make something illegal that can potentially save the lives of children.
Right. And then what's scary now is you have to get into the whole Narcan talk, because your kid could actually just be experimenting like adolescents or kids do, and all of a sudden they're overdosed. And Narcan, I mean, I'll go ahead and touch on it. I mean, basically it blocks the opiate receptors, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So
and reverses overdose.
Right.
It knocks the fentanyl or the opiate off the receptors.
Right.
Yeah, and for those out there watching, if you want some Narcan for your first aid kit, which everybody should have, reach out to Kelly or myself. We'll make sure you get some.
I agree. And I've seen it work firsthand.
Me too.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, did you have any other questions for the doctor, Dusty?
No, I just want to make a suggestion, doctor, or offer this up. If you do write a second book, call it "But Wait, There's More."
But yeah,
thank you, guys.
Yeah. I definitely want to want you to go get this book. It's called Understanding Addiction. Know the Science, No Stigma. We both have it promptly displayed. You were kind enough to send me 2 copies, and I gave one to Dusty.
Yes, thank you very much.
But I kept the autographed one. So.
Right. I know where to find Dr. Chuck now.
That's right. So, but I guess any like 101 advice you would give to families, or if they think that their child or a loved one is suffering from addiction, anything you would recommend as far as, if somebody's just tuning in for the first time?
Yes, what I always recommend to them is treat this no different than if you felt your loved one was suffering from any other serious, potentially fatal disease. If you thought they had a cardiovascular event, you'd want them to go see a cardiologist. If they had chest pain, if they had some signs or symptom of cancer, you wouldn't just say, you know what, I think maybe sometime this next year you ought to go see a doctor.
Eat some broccoli, dude. You'll be fine.
Exactly.
Right.
And that we treat it with the same urgency and intensity, and we impose that on our loved ones. Say, no, you know what, we're going to demand that you get an evaluation, because there is no coming back from these fentanyl overdoses. It truly is a life-taking endeavor, and the risk is just too great. So whenever I do talk to families and they go, he just smokes weed, I think he'll be okay. He plays a lot of video games or one thing or another. I said, get him a professional evaluation.
Yeah.
And we'll see.
Yeah. No,
is he just a casual user or not?
Right.
And then we go through the whole risk factors that we've been discussing, and can certainly see what this individual needs to do to find long-term recovery, or even to get diagnosed with substance use disorder in the first place.
Right. Yeah, and I love that that term, SUD, substance use disorder. You're not an addict anymore. You have SUD. But definitely, I encourage you to get this book. I mean, it's a good read and it's very informative. And Dusty, did you have any follow-up questions or?
No, we pretty much covered all of it.
Yeah.
I could go talk about this for hours, but
right.
Maybe we can have the doctor back on the show one day. And
I would love to do that, and maybe if you have the time, we could have you back on. And so are you actually? Is Dr. Hunt? Where does he live now?
He's in Gainesville, and
okay.
He's at Florida Recovery Center, the University of Florida's rehab,
right?
As attending physician.
Okay. And is there any, besides obviously your book and what you want to push, is there any maybe nonprofit out there that you would like to push or that you recommend for people out there? I always, talk about the, suicide hotline, stuff like that. But I mean, is there anything that you maybe we've never heard of here in Texas that you have a resource out there that people can reach out and get help?
No, probably just all the ones you all advocate for. Certainly the suicide hotline, the SAMHSA,
right,
government website, the NIDA. I mean, I follow all those on my social media sites and contribute to them.
I gotcha. And then if anybody wants to reach out to you personally, do you do counseling on your own independently or just through a facility or?
Actually, if they're in the state of Florida, I even do telehealth, but that's under my license. But I freely give advice to anyone all over the country.
Okay.
My email is helpsaddiction@gmail.com. And we have a website, helpsaddiction.com, that patients and families can contact me through also.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. And then you're on social media as well if they want to follow your Instagram, which is Dr. Chuck Smith, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because that's the way everybody talks now. It's social media and not on the phone anymore. And not by letter for sure. Unless you're getting state certified warning from the state or something like that, or jury duty. But other than that, Charles, anybody you'd like to shout out to? Anybody that is I noticed you in the forward, y'all thanked, there was a guy's name which escapes me. What was his name, the guy that you dedicated the book to? The gentleman.
Well, we actually dedicated the two. One was Mike McLemore.
Uh-huh.
He's an addiction counselor training in Alabama.
Uh-huh.
And, he gave me and Jason one of our big starts to get certified as addiction counselors. And Dr. Scott Teitelbaum, the medical director at the University of Florida, in that he gave me and Jason our pathway to get back into medicine and provided our training in addiction medicine. Both those guys were instrumental in the reconstruction of our careers.
Well, cool. Well, and I'm glad your career was resurrected, and I'm glad. I always like to say this. I'm glad you didn't die.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So, but thanks again for coming out. I can't appreciate it enough. I definitely want to have you back on, and we can talk shop on something else fun. I know, because we're always looking for that doctor's opinion.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about addiction and trauma. I mean, I could talk about that forever.
Yeah, but I know you're at work, but hey, everybody, go out, get his book, and Dr. Chuck, we will let you get back to work. Dusty and I will talk amongst ourselves. But thanks again for coming on. I appreciate you, and get in there and help people.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thanks, Zach. Okay, take care,
Talk
Chuck.
to you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
I appreciate it. Hey, so I wanted to, Dusty, talk about you're still doing the Recovery Dharma, correct?
Yes.
So, and it's been a while since you've been on. So, where is that happening locally here in Dallas?
So, just for those of you who aren't familiar with Recovery Dharma, it's a Buddhist pathway to recovery.
It's not a religious.
No, it's not a religion, unless you want it to be. And so we have a great little book that we use. We follow the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and the 5 Precepts. And to learn a little bit about that, just come check us out at a meeting. We have a meeting in Plano, right off of Spring Creek and Custer, every Wednesday at 7. Okay. So it's open to anybody who wants to come, whether you're experiencing or in recovery from chemical addiction, trauma, divorce, or you just want to work on some of your behaviors. So it's very inclusive, and we'd like to keep it that way. Yeah. Bring a friend, bring 2 friends. You can follow us on the Facebook page, Recovery Dharma Plano TX, or on our Instagram, Recovery Dharma Plano TX again. You can also shoot me any questions on there as well. The address and the gate code, or the door code, in case you get locked out, is going to be listed on the Facebook page. And in fact, we're going to be having Vijay Moksha here on the show on January 14th.
Yeah, he's going to be in the new building. So real quick, I forgot to even mention that at the top of the show. We're going to be actually moving the show coming up after the first of the year. We're moving to Hello Studios. Venture X here in Frisco was sold. So, but they've been a gracious host, and I would love to thank them for having us out here. But we're going to be moving after the first of the year, and he's going to be one of the first. He gets to be an experiment. He's a guinea pig.
Yeah, Vijay and Ananda, they let us use their space to have our meeting every week. So they are our kind benefactors and friends.
What is that? What is that space called?
A Mystic Mandala Center.
Okay,
it's a meditation center. So they do meditations on, I believe, on Tuesday and Thursday and Saturday, and they have some other events too. So you can also check them out on Facebook. Mystic Mandala Center.
Okay, well, cool. And then also, your ever so important group, SoBar Basics.
SoBar Basics is still rocking and rolling. SoBar Basics on Facebook. SoBarBasics.com will take you the link to take you to the Facebook page. And we're an active recovery community. We do events and just share our experiences and support each other online. Addiction of all kinds, whether it be process addiction, chemical addiction.
And it's people, even for people that are sober curious, it's a good way to just view kind of what's going on, and people are very open about talking about their struggles. But I mean, it also is a private group. But people are very open about what they're going through there,
right.
And for the majority, I see really great advice coming back to people that have questions, because guess what? The situation that you might be in, or a loved one may be in, chances are it's happened before and somebody's been through it. You're not unique in that way, even though we all think we are. I'm just like, you and I probably, we've been to a lot of meetings and gone, that person sounds like me,
Yeah, what's great about SoBar, it's people that are sober for a day. We have somebody was on there just celebrated 20 years of sobriety, and it's multiple pathways, so you don't have to necessarily.
And there's talk of relapse as well.
Yeah, people are struggling on there, but people are also sharing their triumphs.
Sure.
So, and you get support, a lot of advice. If you're looking for a treatment center or a detox, we have a lot of resource providers in the group.
Yeah.
So just like a catch-all, and then other recovery communities also promote within there. So if you're looking for fun stuff to do in the community and cool people to meet.
And y'all do events and stuff like that, right? Yeah. And it's actually spelled SOBAR. So if you're looking that up, it's SoBar Basics.
That's short for sober bartender, which I was a bartender for 20 years before I entered recovery and became a counselor. And so that's, and the acronym for BASICS is Bartender and Service Industry Support. So we have community support. So we have a lot of people from the service industry, whether it be chefs, bartenders, wait staff, hairstylists, and then really anybody else, because we're all about inclusion.
All right, cool. I love it. I love it. And I love the community. I love the events y'all throw. And I love Recovery Dharma, man. I mean, it's just a different take on sobriety. And actually, you know, it's not necessarily just about addiction recovery. I mean, it can be just, you know, from past trauma, and it helps you to deal with that and navigate that. And also, I want to point out that you do not necessarily have to be in addiction recovery to attend the Recovery Dharma meetings. And hey, real quick, I do have a question though. What is Dharma?
Dharma means the truth.
Dharma
means the truth. And a Sangha is our community of wise friends and mentors.
There you go. I love it. But yeah, because everybody's like, Dharma, isn't that from the show Lost? I'm like, well, yeah.
Or Dharma and Greg.
But it's no. I'm talking about the show Lost.
Well, I never watched that show, but I did watch Dharma and Greg.
That was the greatest show ever. You need to binge watch it, Dusty. Hey, and also be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are almost at 1,000. I think we're at like 950. So if we can, please subscribe, because actually we're going to be going live on our YouTube channel from the new studio. So it's going to be live, and then actually Facebook might become the old clips page, and just go live on Facebook. I mean on YouTube. And if you go to thispinkcloud.com. That will take you to the YouTube channel, and all you got to do is hit subscribe.
Awesome.
That tough.
Yeah, I want to give a big shout out to the SUD staff out at Texoma Community Center. And we're doing cool things out there. So if you're looking for services, check out texomacc.org. And we got stuff for substance use disorder, mental health, veterans, children, a lot of services out there in the Grayson, Cook, and Fannin counties.
In the Grayson, Cook, and Fantis
counties.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, good to know. But hey, yeah, be sure and you know, share this show if it helps you. We've had a bunch of really good episodes actually coming up next week. Well, I'm super excited. This is like this is almost like the Salvation Army would be like, I mean, level, but it's we actually have the CEO, Marsha Williamson from the 24-Hour Club, the Dallas 24-Hour Club, the Dallas 24-Hour Club. I got to say it like that.
Yeah,
but
I have some dear friends who got sober
and that is a great organization, and you'll definitely want to tune in for that next week. But other than that, Brett, I think we are done for the day. Be sure, if you need some help, reach out to Summer Sky. That's www.summersky.us, and that's 888-857-8857. I got sober there, man, and if I can do it, you can do it. And remember, kids, there is no magic pill for sobriety, because if there was, we would all take too many.
Kelly Reverb, ladies and gentlemen.